Pantheon is about to open and it looks like it will be one of the best coasters in the world when it does. But that's not the only significance of this new ride. Pantheon was manufactured by Intamin and it holds the key to the future of one of the largest manufacturers in the coaster industry. Intamin amusement rides first started in 1967 and the company was a go-to manufacturer in the coaster industry for years. They built the first 300-foot coaster and the only 400-foot coasters in the world. Intamin has their hands in many pies. They do flat rides, water rides, coasters, basically anything they can build and make money from, they will build. Intamin was always a risk-reward based company, meaning they wouldn't take extreme risks pushing the barriers and in turn would get very high rewards when they succeeded. The problem for Intamin though was always reliability. Intamin coasters are known to be some of the least reliable coasters in existence, and this led many different parks and chains across the world to move away from Intamin to more reliable manufacturers like B&M. The reason Intamin was still able to coexist alongside B&M was because though B&M was more reliable, they weren't willing to take the risks Intamin was willing to take. Think about it. Almost every major coaster you see today was inspired by Intamin. Launch coasters. All the launch coasters besides S&S's Air Launch were inspired by Intamin. Intamin was putting launches on their coasters for over 20 years already, but B&M only recently built the first launch coaster in 2016 at Holiday World. Intamin had the risk-taker attitude and that led them to develop models like the Intamin Blitz, which is one of the most successful coaster models today. Many of the coaster records and models wouldn't exist today without Intamin. Imagine a world with no Top Thrill Dragster, no King the Ka, no Toro, Skyrush, Superman, I can go on and on. B&M, on the other hand, didn't really develop anything significant. B&M stand-up, sit-downs, hypers, and gigas were all models another manufacturer offered already. Sure, B&M came up with a successful flying coaster as well as their popular invert and wing models, but those aren't anything as crazy as some of the models Intamin has come up with. B&M's best roller coaster is Fury 325, while Intamin's is El Toro. Fury 325 is a giga coaster, something Intamin was able to do over a decade before B&M with Millennium Force. El Toro, on the other hand, was a unique way of building wooden coasters invented by Intamin. I could go on the rivalry between Intamin and B&M, but the point is that Intamin was always the industry's premier manufacturer if you wanted something new and unique. Intamin was always the one to push the boundaries, and though their coasters weren't that reliable, there weren't really any better alternatives. In 2005, Six Flags made the choice to build King of the Ka, and though it is unreliable, if they would have asked any other manufacturer to build them a tall coaster like that, there wouldn't be anyone else willing to do it. Parks were willing to sacrifice a little bit when it came to the reliability of a coaster if it meant they got to have something huge. Fast forward to today, and there are so many different manufacturers able to build so many unique coasters a lot more reliable than Intamin's, which caused many chains and parks to stop working with Intamin. Cedar, Six Flags, and Hershey Park were all huge customers of Intamin, yet none of them have worked with Intamin in the last 10 years. Intamin also hasn't been at the forefront of innovation in the last decade. RMC dominated with their new unique cheap models that provide insane ride experiences, and even S&S and MAC unveiled amazing new coasters. Intamin realized their problem and we recently saw them unveil a whole bunch of new coaster models. Intamin has also been trying to improve on the reliability of their new coasters, and they have definitely been doing a good job so far. You see, it's not hard to build a reliable coaster after you've already built that model several times before. You learn from previous mistakes, improve the technology, and boom! All of Intamin's new roller coasters built in recent years haven't been anything new for them, so the fact that they are reliable doesn't really say much. That's where Pantheon comes in. Wow, it took a long time to get to this part of the video, but I truly believe Intamin's future depends on Pantheon. Not necessarily on how successful the ride is or how well it is received, but mainly its reliability. Pantheon is one of Intamin's only experimental roller coasters since they've been making a push to become more reliable. Yes, Intamin has built Blitz coasters that have been extremely successful. I mean, Velocicoaster literally opened last year, but Velocicoaster wasn't quite as unique as Pantheon. Pantheon isn't a full-on new model for the company, but it does feature some unique elements more likely to cause maintenance and reliability issues. The vertical spike is something Intamin has done before, but Pantheon's unique combination of elements could end up being a maintenance nightmare for the park. A lot of people have begun to think the days of unreliable Intamin coasters are gone, but that's not necessarily true. Hagrid's had its fair share of issues when it opened in 2019 at Universal, but I'm not gonna go into detail since El Toro Ryan has a great video on it explaining everything about the ride, including black zones. Anyway, my point is that not every Intamin will be reliable. As a matter of fact, not every coaster from any manufacturer will be reliable. That's why Pantheon is so important. If Pantheon runs smoothly without any major issues, then Intamin will remain in the green, possibly opening the door for them to work together with SeaWorld. But if Pantheon ends up having reliability issues, Intamin's in big trouble. I mean, really big trouble. Intamin isn't really in the best place they could be after the 2021 season. 2021 was the worst year for roller coaster accidents in a really long time, maybe even the worst year ever, but it was especially bad for Intamin. Most of the major roller coaster accidents that happened this year were on Intamin coasters, and not only that, most of those coasters were the best coasters in their parks. You had the cable that snapped on I-305, which is one of the star attractions at King's Dominion. Skyrush at Hershey Park had an issue as well and was closed for a big chunk of the season. This was really a blow to Hershey Park because they had just gotten Storm Runner open after months of not operating. Then you had Top Thrill Dragster, which now looks like it might even get removed after a metal piece flew out and hit a woman in the queue, sending her to the hospital. Top Thrill Dragster is an icon for Cedar Point, and the fact that they'd even consider removing such a popular and iconic coaster shows you how bad the reliability issues they've had with it really are. Before we talk about the biggest accident of the year, I need to thank you all for the support this channel has been getting. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and this channel wouldn't be where it is without you. That being said, we're still not at 1,000, so please subscribe. It would really mean the world to me. Anyway, back to the video. We also had the big accident. El Toro's derailment, which caused the park to have to retrack most of the ride. El Toro is the best coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure and one of the top 10 in the world, and it was closed for most of the year. After all these major accidents that happened this year, Intamin isn't really in a good position. Intamin can claim these accidents were all on older coasters and that their newer coasters don't have the same issues, but that's only if Pantheon is reliable. If Pantheon gives Busch Gardens a headache this season, many parks and chains won't want to work with Intamin for new coasters. 20 years ago, Intamin was so ahead of everyone else that it was worth getting an unreliable coaster since the coaster was so insane. Now, Intamin is kind of behind the times and new manufacturers like RMC are dominating. Don't get me wrong, Intamin still makes some of the best coasters in the world, but parks will want to know that they won't get burned working with Intamin. From what I see, I think Pantheon will be reliable, and I think Intamin's future is looking bright. But Intamin isn't gonna have it as easy going forward, especially with B&M's new surf model, which looks to be B&M's take on the Intamin Blitz. Subscribe!